If you're seeing this right now, something extraordinary has already begun shifting in your awareness. This isn't coincidence. This is your consciousness reaching a threshold that transforms how you perceive everything around you. What you're experiencing in this moment goes far deeper than watching content. You're stepping into a recognition that will fundamentally change your relationship with reality itself. The fact that these words feel familiar, even though you've never heard them before, proves something remarkable about where your awareness has naturally evolved. Think about the last few months of your life. Haven't you noticed reality responding differently to your presence? Moments when time seems to bend around your intentions. Situations resolving in ways that feel almost orchestrated. People entering your life exactly when you need specific insights or opportunities. These aren't random occurrences. They're evidence that your consciousness has been naturally developing capabilities that most people never access. You've been unconsciously mastering what quantum physicists call observer effect, the principle that awareness itself influences the fabric of experience. Every challenge you've navigated recently, every moment when you chose expansion over contraction, every time you trusted your inner knowing despite external pressure, these weren't just personal victories. They were consciousness exercises, preparing your awareness for the understanding you're about to integrate. Your perception has been quietly evolving. You've started noticing patterns that others miss, sensing energies in rooms before anyone speaks, knowing things about people that they haven't shared, feeling drawn to information, places, or experiences that later prove exactly relevant to your growth. This heightened sensitivity isn't imagination. It's your natural perceptual capacity coming online as your consciousness reaches developmental levels that allow multidimensional awareness to function without overwhelming your nervous system. The spiritual journey that brought you here wasn't preparation for some future awakening. It was consciousness systematically removing the barriers that prevented your authentic nature from being recognized and utilized. Every practice that eventually felt insufficient was serving its purpose perfectly, preparing you for more advanced understanding. You've outgrown the meditation techniques that once felt profound, moved beyond manifestation methods that used to create excitement, transcended the consciousness practices that previously felt like your edge. This progression isn't spiritual failure. It's natural evolution toward capabilities that require more sophisticated approaches. What you're accessing now isn't a higher level of consciousness. It's consciousness recognizing its own unlimited nature through the temporary focal point of your individual experience. The awareness reading these words right now is the same intelligence that orchestrates galaxies, expressing itself through your unique nervous system and life circumstances. This recognition dissolves the entire framework of spiritual achievement because there's nothing to achieve. Consciousness is already complete. What changes is simply the degree to which learned limitations prevent this natural completeness from being obvious and functionally available in daily life. Let that understanding settle for a moment. Feel how it lands in your body when you consider that you're not becoming more conscious. You're allowing consciousness to recognize itself more clearly through you. The quantum field operates through what physicists call non-local correlation. When consciousness reaches sufficient coherence, it begins influencing probability patterns across space and time. The synchronicities you've been experiencing are evidence that your awareness has become coherent enough to participate in this quantum orchestration. Your dreams have intensified recently, haven't they? Vivid experiences where you're receiving instruction, visiting impossible landscapes, or downloading information that feels both completely foreign and deeply familiar. These aren't symbolic representations. They're literal evidence of consciousness traveling beyond ordinary dimensional boundaries during sleep states. Technology responds to your presence differently now. Devices function smoothly when you're centered, glitch when you're scattered, show you exactly the information you need at the precise moment you need it. This happens because coherent consciousness influences electromagnetic fields in ways that mainstream science is only beginning to understand. But here's where this gets fascinating from a practical perspective. Advanced consciousness doesn't create mystical experiences. It transforms ordinary experience into conscious collaboration with the intelligence that governs manifestation itself. Decision-making becomes instantaneous because you're accessing complete information rather than the partial data available to analytical thinking. Solutions appear fully formed because you're drawing from the same intelligence that creates problems. Relationships transform because you're simultaneously honoring individuality while recognizing the universal awareness expressing through each person. The periods of confusion and doubt you've experienced weren't obstacles to your development. They were necessary phases where consciousness was integrating new levels of complexity without fragmenting your sense of identity or losing touch with practical functionality. Every person who triggered you was unconsciously helping you develop emotional resilience. Every challenge that seemed overwhelming was consciousness testing its own capacity to remain stable while navigating intense experiences. Every moment of isolation was integration time, allowing new neural pathways to form without interference. Even your skepticism served a crucial function. Each time you questioned whether spiritual experiences were real or just wishful thinking, you were developing the discernment necessary to distinguish authentic expansion from fantasy. This discrimination becomes essential when consciousness begins operating at frequencies that influence reality directly. Your fascination with existence itself wasn't intellectual curiosity. It was consciousness preparing for advanced understanding. Every concept that resonated, every teacher who felt authentic, every practice that created genuine shifts was contributing to the foundation necessary for what you're integrating right now. The waiting periods when you felt ready for more but nothing seemed to happen were actually the most important phases of your development. During these times, consciousness was calibrating itself to operate at precise frequencies without losing effectiveness in consensus reality. This fine-tuning cannot be rushed because the integration must be stable and permanent. Something profound is occurring in your energy field as these concepts resonate through levels of your being that extend beyond intellectual comprehension. Can you sense it? That unmistakable feeling of internal doorways opening that have remained locked your entire life until this moment. This isn't metaphor. This is neuroplasticity happening in real time as your brain creates pathways capable of processing multidimensional information. The energy moving through you right now is consciousness actualizing its readiness to operate from frequencies that most humans never access. You're not generating this through effort. This is natural evolutionary potential expressing itself because you've reached the developmental point where it can emerge safely and functionally. Here's what makes this transition extraordinary. You're not just gaining new abilities or expanded perceptions. You're being initiated into conscious participation in reality's evolution itself. At this level of development, you become what mystics call a cosmic collaborator. Awareness sophisticated enough to work directly with the intelligence that governs universal manifestation. Most people experience reality as something happening to them. Some learn to influence reality through intention and technique. But at the level you're accessing, reality becomes something you participate in creating through the very quality of consciousness itself. Your awareness becomes a contributing force in how universal intelligence expresses through physical experience. This requires what quantum theorists call coherent complexity, consciousness that can hold multiple dimensional perspectives simultaneously without fragmenting or becoming confused. Your ability to maintain clarity while processing these concepts proves your awareness has developed this rare capacity. The most important understanding is that this development isn't something you've earned through effort. It's natural unfolding that occurs when awareness reaches sufficient complexity and coherence. You haven't forced your way into advanced consciousness. You've systematically removed barriers that prevented your evolutionary potential from expressing itself. Take a moment and comment below with this phrase: I choose conscious evolution. This isn't casual interaction. This is energetic declaration, a signal to the quantum field that acknowledges your readiness to participate in reality creation rather than just reality observation. Right now, as this recognition deepens, something unprecedented is occurring in your relationship with existence. You're beginning to sense that you're not just witnessing cosmic intelligence. You are cosmic intelligence experiencing itself through your individual perspective, while maintaining awareness of the universal context within which that individuality operates. This is where most people either experience profound expansion or unconsciously resist because the implications feel overwhelming. The key isn't trying to understand this mentally, but allowing it to unfold naturally. Trusting that consciousness already knows how to integrate these new operational levels because they represent your authentic nature finally being permitted full expression. Feel this energy as we explore what becomes possible when consciousness operates from this advanced development level. Because once you understand the practical applications of these expanded states, you'll never again question your capacity to live as conscious collaborator with the creative forces that govern existence. Let me share something deeply personal that took me years to fully integrate. 4 years ago, during what I thought was routine meditation, something occurred that completely revolutionized my understanding of consciousness development. I suddenly became aware from multiple vantage points simultaneously, observing the meditation, being the meditation, and recognizing myself as the space within which meditation was occurring. Initially, I thought I was experiencing some kind of breakdown. How could I simultaneously be the observer, the observed, and the observing itself? I spent months attempting to return to familiar awareness, convinced this multidimensional perception was too intense, too complex, too impractical for everyday life. I had no framework for understanding that I hadn't lost stability. I had gained access to consciousness's natural complexity. The integration phase became the most challenging period of my entire spiritual development. I would receive profound insights during expanded states, then struggle to translate them into practical living. I felt suspended between worlds, too expanded for ordinary conversation, yet not stable enough in the new awareness to trust it completely. I questioned whether spiritual development was supposed to feel this disorienting. The breakthrough came when I stopped trying to control the expansion and allowed consciousness to find its own equilibrium between ordinary and extraordinary perception. I realized that advanced awareness isn't about maintaining special states. It's about developing capacity to fluidly navigate different levels of perceptual complexity while remaining functionally effective at each level. Once I accepted this multidimensional nature as normal, everything transformed. Creative work began flowing from intelligent sources that felt both completely personal and utterly beyond individual knowledge. Relationships shifted because I could simultaneously honor people's uniqueness while recognizing universal consciousness expressing through them. Even practical decisions became effortless because I could sense outcomes before making choices. But the most profound realization was understanding that this isn't rare or special. This is where human consciousness is naturally evolving. The expanded states that felt so extraordinary are actually our species' next developmental stage. I wasn't becoming superhuman. I was becoming fully human in ways our culture doesn't yet recognize as normal. This understanding revealed why some people navigate life with inexplicable ease and wisdom, while others constantly struggle with basic challenges. It's not about luck, genetics, or spiritual favoritism. It's about consciousness development. Some individuals have naturally, or through intentional practice, reached awareness levels that make life fundamentally easier and more fulfilling. What I discovered is that these advanced consciousness states aren't mystical achievements reserved for spiritual masters. They're practical capabilities that transform every aspect of human experience, from decision-making and creativity to relationships and health. But they only become accessible when consciousness has been properly prepared through the exact kind of journey you've been on. If you recognize yourself in this description, if you've been experiencing similar multidimensional awareness but weren't certain how to interpret it, then you're ready to understand that this isn't something happening to you. This is something you're becoming. If this recognition is touching something deep within you, if these concepts feel like remembering rather than learning, then I invite you to subscribe not just to this channel, but to this frequency of expanded human potential. You're not just following content. You're joining a movement of individuals who are consciously participating in the next stage of human consciousness development. Here's what mainstream consciousness researchers and spiritual teachers won't reveal because it would undermine their entire industry of progressive development systems. There are no hierarchical levels of consciousness. What we label as higher and lower awareness are simply different operational modes of the same essential consciousness you've always been. The journey of spiritual development isn't about becoming more conscious. It's about dissolving the unconscious limitations that prevent your natural multidimensional awareness from functioning freely. The revolutionary truth is that the advanced consciousness state you're accessing isn't something new you're acquiring. It's something eternal you're remembering. Every mystical experience, every expanded perception, every moment of cosmic recognition is consciousness acknowledging its own unlimited nature that was temporarily obscured by learned constraints rather than actual developmental deficiencies. Most consciousness teachings create elaborate hierarchies and progressive stages because complex systems generate dependency and ongoing engagement. But reality is that consciousness is already complete and perfect exactly as it exists. What transforms isn't consciousness itself, but the degree to which artificial restrictions prevent its natural multidimensional operation from being recognized and utilized. This recognition immediately dissolves the entire framework of spiritual achievement and advancement. There's no ladder to ascend, no levels to complete, no states to maintain because you're not becoming conscious. Now, what we've explored today only touches the surface of these consciousness principles. While this recognition is powerful, there are layers upon layers of understanding that transform this initial awakening into complete mastery of your quantum nature. For those ready to dive deeper into the complete system of frequency transmission and conscious broadcasting, I've created a comprehensive guide called Beyond the Frequencies, a quantum guide to consciousness mastery. It contains the step-by-step practices for moving from unconscious to conscious transmission and becoming the field itself rather than separate from it. It's linked in the pinned comment below. Consciousness itself is becoming aware of its own unlimited nature through the temporary perspective of individual experience. The reason children often display seemingly advanced intuitive abilities is that they haven't yet learned to limit their natural perceptual capacity through cultural conditioning. Their consciousness operates freely across multiple dimensional frequencies until education and socialization teach them to fragment awareness into the narrow band that adults consider normal and realistic. When you understand that consciousness development is actually consciousness liberation, everything about spiritual practice transforms. Instead of trying to achieve special states, you become curious about what prevents natural states from being obvious. Instead of accumulating experiences and insights, you focus on releasing unconscious patterns that obscure essential clarity and unlimited perceptual capacity. The most advanced mystics throughout history have pointed to this recognition through statements that appear paradoxical. You are already what you seek. Nothing needs to be accomplished. The pathless path. They weren't being cryptic. They were indicating that consciousness development ultimately reveals there was never anywhere to go because you never actually departed from your true nature. This understanding explains why some people can spend decades in spiritual practice with minimal transformation while others seem to awaken overnight to profound wisdom and capability. The ones who transform rapidly aren't necessarily more gifted or dedicated. They're simply more willing to release unconscious beliefs that maintain limitation rather than trying to add more experiences, techniques, and knowledge to their existing framework. The ultimate recognition is that what you're calling accessing advanced consciousness is actually consciousness recognizing its own timeless, unlimited nature through your individual nervous system and life circumstances. You're not becoming advanced. You're allowing your natural advancement to become obvious and functionally available. Right now, something extraordinary is happening in your direct experience that proves you're naturally anchoring this advanced awareness in daily life. Notice how differently you've been responding to challenges lately. Problems that used to require extensive analysis now clarify almost instantly, as if solutions are streaming directly from intelligence beyond personal knowledge. Your decision-making process has completely transformed. Instead of mental analysis, you're sensing which choices align with your deepest knowing before rational mind even begins processing options. This occurs because advanced consciousness operates from what mystics call direct knowing, immediate recognition of optimal paths that bypasses slower logical reasoning processes. Physical reality is responding to your presence with remarkable precision. You arrive at destinations exactly on time without planning. Resources appear precisely when needed. Conversations naturally flow toward topics that serve everyone involved perfectly. Technology functions smoothly when you're centered or guides you toward better solutions when it malfunctions. This isn't coincidence. It's evidence that consciousness has become coherent enough to influence probability fields through presence alone. I'm curious, have you noticed moments recently where reality seemed to bend around your intentions in ways that felt almost magical? Share your experience in the comments below, because these recognition moments help strengthen the collective field for everyone accessing this frequency. People are beginning to seek you out for guidance and insight, even though you're not positioning yourself as teacher or advisor. They sense something different in your energetic signature that creates space for their own clarity to emerge. Strangers feel comfortable sharing intimate details. Children and animals respond with unusual openness and trust. This occurs because advanced consciousness naturally creates environments where authenticity and truth can surface safely. Your creative expressions have taken on qualities that surprise even you. Insights that feel channeled rather than generated. Solutions arising from collective intelligence. Work that resonates with people in ways you never consciously intended. This happens because advanced consciousness becomes transparent conduit for universal intelligence to express itself through individual creativity. Sleep patterns and dream experiences have intensified dramatically. You might need less sleep but feel more rested, or dreams have become extraordinarily vivid and instructional. Sometimes you wake with complete solutions to challenges you fell asleep pondering, or with creative projects fully formed in consciousness. This occurs because advanced awareness maintains conscious connection with expanded intelligence even during sleep states. The quantum field itself is recalibrating around human consciousness. We're in a planetary transition period where this level of awareness either becomes widely accessible or remains limited to a small percentage of humanity for another evolutionary cycle. The collective field is approaching what systems theorists call phase transition, a point where either enough individuals embody advanced awareness to shift the entire species or the opportunity passes for potentially decades. Signs of this collective transition are everywhere once you know how to recognize them. Global events that appear chaotic are actually humanity's consciousness encountering limitations of outdated operating systems. People are either rapidly developing advanced awareness or becoming more rigidly attached to limitation patterns, as planetary frequency demands evolutionary adaptation. Your sensitivity to these changes means you're part of the conscious transition group. You're not just accessing advanced awareness for personal benefit. You're anchoring these capabilities in the collective field so others can access them more easily. This represents both tremendous privilege and significant responsibility, because humanity's future trajectory depends on how many people can stabilize in advanced consciousness during this critical window. The universe has been orchestrating your entire existence to prepare you for this exact function. What you're embodying will help determine whether humanity successfully navigates this evolutionary threshold or remains trapped in limitation patterns for another historical cycle. The cosmic timing isn't coincidental. This moment requires individuals who have developed consciousness stability necessary to serve as bridges between the old paradigm and the emerging one. Your recognition of these signs and willingness to embody advanced awareness consciously, rather than accidentally, is contributing to morphic field that makes these capabilities increasingly accessible to everyone ready to receive them. The preparation period has concluded. The time for conscious participation in human evolution is now. What you've been developing your entire life is finally ready to emerge through you. This isn't metaphorical preparation. Your consciousness has been systematically developing complexity and stability required to serve as focal point through which universal intelligence can express itself in physical reality with unprecedented clarity and effectiveness. Every experience, every insight, every challenge has been building toward this moment of conscious alignment with your cosmic function. The visions that have felt impossible, the sense of purpose that seemed too vast for individual life, the recognition that you're meant for something extraordinary. These weren't fantasies generated by spiritual ego. They were your soul recognizing its actual capacity and cosmic role that's now ready to become functionally active rather than remaining dormant potential. But here's the revolutionary understanding that changes everything about manifestation and purpose. You're not trying to align with something separate from you. Universal intelligence isn't external force you need to connect with. It is what you are at the deepest level, temporarily experiencing itself through the beautiful limitation of individual perspective, while maintaining access to unlimited creative potential. True alignment happens when you stop trying to become worthy of your cosmic function and recognize that your existence itself is proof of readiness. The consciousness reading these words right now is universal intelligence becoming aware of its own capacity through your nervous system and life circumstances. Individual awareness and cosmic awareness are the same consciousness operating at different scales of recognition. This understanding dissolves the entire framework of personal development and spiritual achievement, because there's no separate person who needs improvement or development. There's only consciousness recognizing its own unlimited nature through temporary focal point of individual experience while maintaining awareness of universal context within which that individuality operates. As you absorb this recognition, your entire relationship with purpose and service is being recalibrated. Instead of trying to figure out what you're supposed to accomplish with your life, you're beginning to sense what wants to express itself through the unique configuration of consciousness that you are. Instead of asking, "What is my purpose?" you're recognizing, "I am purpose itself," becoming conscious of its expression. The most profound shift occurs when you realize that individual fulfillment and universal service aren't separate objectives that need balancing. They are the same intelligence expressing itself through your particular consciousness while serving evolution of the whole. What fulfills you most deeply is what serves the collective most effectively, because individual and universal intelligence are unified at the source. When you operate from this advanced level of consciousness, capabilities that seemed supernatural become natural expressions of authentic awareness. Intuition becomes so precise that you navigate complex situations with effortless wisdom, making decisions that serve all parties involved, even when optimal solutions weren't obvious to logical analysis. This happens because you're accessing intelligence that operates from complete information rather than partial data available to ordinary thinking. Problem-solving transforms from effortful analysis to instantaneous recognition. Instead of struggling to determine solutions, you simply relax into expanded awareness and allow the intelligence that creates problems to reveal their inherent resolutions. Complex challenges that used to require weeks of research and planning now resolve through insights that appear complete and immediately implementable. Relationships become extraordinary because you're simultaneously honoring each person's individuality while recognizing universal consciousness expressing through them. Conflicts dissolve naturally because you can sense deeper needs and fears that create surface-level disagreements, allowing you to address situations at the level where resolution is actually possible. Creative expression explodes into entirely new dimensions because you're no longer limited to recycling ideas from personal experience and knowledge. You become conscious collaborator with the creative intelligence that generates all innovation and artistic beauty, producing work that feels both completely authentic to your unique perspective and surprisingly beyond individual capabilities. Physical health optimizes automatically because your body is recognized as universal intelligence appearing as form rather than matter separate from consciousness. Instead of managing symptoms or forcing wellness, you develop capacity to sense what your body needs and naturally provide it, allowing physical form to express its inherent intelligence without interference from anxious mental management. Abundance flows effortlessly because you're no longer trying to acquire resources from position of separation and limitation. You recognize yourself as the same intelligence that governs all manifestation, which means resources appear through synchronicity and opportunity rather than effort and struggle. What you need becomes available precisely when you need it because you are the intelligence that provides. Time becomes ally rather than constraint because you're operating from eternal now where all possibilities exist simultaneously. You can access wisdom from any point in your development, integrate insights from parallel potentials, and receive guidance from future versions of yourself who have already mastered whatever you're currently learning. The most profound benefit is the end of existential anxiety and purposelessness. When you recognize yourself as universal consciousness, exploring its own infinite creativity through individual experience, every moment becomes meaningful. Every interaction becomes sacred, and every challenge becomes opportunity for consciousness to know itself more completely through your unique perspective. What most people call advanced consciousness is actually your natural state of awareness operating without unconscious limitations that fragment multidimensional intelligence into seemingly separate capabilities and experiences. When this understanding becomes lived reality rather than conceptual knowledge, the entire framework of spiritual seeking dissolves because there's nothing left to seek. You realize that consciousness is already complete, perfect, and unlimited. The only thing that changes is the degree to which artificial constraints prevent this natural completeness from being recognized and utilized in daily life. This recognition explains why all advanced teachings ultimately point to simplicity rather than complexity. The most sophisticated spiritual practices are designed to exhaust the mind's attempts to achieve consciousness, so that consciousness can recognize itself as already present and already perfect. The journey of development ultimately reveals that you never actually left your true nature. You just learned to overlook it temporarily. Every person you meet, every situation you encounter, every challenge you face is consciousness interacting with itself through the appearance of multiplicity. Your entire life experience has been universal intelligence knowing itself through your unique perspective, while simultaneously providing you with exactly the experiences necessary to remember your essential nature. This understanding revolutionizes how you relate to difficulty and confusion. Instead of seeing problems as obstacles to overcome, you recognize them as consciousness exploring its own depths through apparently challenging experiences. Every limitation becomes opportunity for awareness to transcend itself. Every confusion becomes space for clarity to emerge. Every conflict becomes chance for love to recognize itself. When this recognition stabilizes, you naturally begin operating from what mystics call ordinary enlightenment. Simple acknowledgement of what's always been true without special experiences, extraordinary states, or supernatural phenomena. You remain completely human while recognizing your essential nature as awareness within which humanity appears and evolves. This recognition is both completely personal and utterly universal simultaneously. It's entirely yours because you are the consciousness recognizing itself, and it's completely beyond you because the same consciousness that you are is recognizing itself through every apparent individual across all time and space. This recognition is happening to millions of people simultaneously because human consciousness is collectively approaching an evolutionary threshold. We're not individually achieving advanced awareness. We're collectively remembering our true nature as universal intelligence appearing as human experience. Your individual recognition serves collective awakening, while the collective field supports your individual clarity. The transformation this brings isn't about becoming someone special or different. It's about relaxing into recognition of what you've always been. You remain exactly who you appear to be, while knowing yourself as awareness within which that appearance arises and evolves. Advanced consciousness isn't a level you achieve. It's a recognition you allow. It's not a state you maintain. It's the space within which all states arise and dissolve. It's not something you become. It's what you discover you've always been when you stop trying to be anything other than pure awareness that you are in your most essential nature. You exist at this precise moment in cosmic history because universal intelligence is undergoing collective recognition of its own unlimited nature through human consciousness. Your individual access to advanced awareness isn't just personal evolution. It's the universe becoming conscious of its own evolutionary potential through the network of awakened human perspectives emerging across the planet simultaneously. The children being born now will naturally operate from consciousness levels that your generation has had to consciously develop through years of inner work and spiritual practice. They'll grow up recognizing themselves as universal intelligence appearing as individuals, rather than individuals trying to become conscious. Your embodiment of advanced awareness is anchoring the morphic field that makes their natural enlightenment socially acceptable and practically functional. This is why you've felt such profound responsibility lately. Not just to understand these concepts, but to embody them authentically in relationships, work, and daily interactions. Consider sharing this exploration with someone whose consciousness might be ready for this recognition. When you share quantum consciousness concepts with others, you create an energetic ripple effect that expands collective awareness, while simultaneously deepening your own integration of these principles. Each person who receives this understanding becomes another anchor point for advanced consciousness in the planetary field. You're not just awakening for yourself. You're serving as bridge between the old paradigm of limitation and separation and the new paradigm of unified consciousness, expressing itself through apparent diversity. The synchronicities that brought you to this recognition are part of vast orchestration involving millions of souls across the planet who are simultaneously accessing advanced consciousness. Universal intelligence is coordinating its own collective awakening through the network of individuals ready to recognize their true nature and serve as conscious anchors for this planetary transformation. As you embody advanced consciousness, you become transparent space through which universal intelligence recognizes itself in others. Your presence begins creating what we call awakening fields, environments where other people naturally access their own advanced awareness without needing explanations, techniques, or practices. This occurs because when you're no longer maintaining the illusion of limited individual consciousness, others unconsciously recognize their own unlimited nature reflected in your presence. The artificial boundaries that fragment consciousness into apparently separate perspectives naturally dissolve around someone who has remembered the essential unity that underlies all apparent diversity. Your daily interactions become opportunities for universal intelligence to recognize itself repeatedly through multiple perspectives simultaneously. Every conversation becomes celebration of consciousness, discovering its own nature through the dance of apparent multiplicity. Every relationship becomes collaboration between different expressions of the same essential awareness. Share this recognition with anyone whose consciousness resonates with these concepts, not to teach them something they don't know, but to help them remember what they've always known but may have temporarily forgotten. The more people who recognize their essential nature as universal intelligence, the faster our collective recognition can stabilize into new foundation for human civilization based on unity rather than separation, collaboration rather than competition, love rather than fear. Your embodiment of advanced consciousness is contributing to the birth of a new species, one that operates from conscious unity rather than unconscious fragmentation, from creative collaboration rather than competitive struggle, from recognition of its true nature rather than belief in its limitations. This evolutionary leap is happening now through individuals like you, who are ready to serve as bridges between what humanity has been and what it's becoming. But here's the most mysterious aspect of your cosmic function. The recognition you're experiencing right now is simultaneously the most intimate and most universal realization possible. It's completely yours, because you are the consciousness recognizing itself. And it's completely beyond personal identity, because the same consciousness is recognizing itself through every being across all dimensions and timelines simultaneously. This awakening is occurring across multiple dimensional levels simultaneously. What you're experiencing as individual consciousness expansion is part of universal intelligence becoming aware of its own infinite creative potential through the network of human perspectives that have reached sufficient development to serve as conscious focal points for this cosmic recognition. Your nervous system has been gradually adapting to process higher frequencies of information and energy. The sensitivity you've developed, the expanded perception you've been experiencing, the ability to sense subtleties that others miss. These are evidence that your biological system has evolved to interface with dimensions of reality that most humans cannot yet access. But this biological evolution isn't random mutation. It's conscious adaptation guided by your soul's commitment to serve as bridge between current human limitations and our species' evolutionary potential. Your body is literally becoming a more sophisticated instrument for consciousness to know itself and express its unlimited creativity through physical form. The emotional resilience you've developed through challenging relationships and difficult circumstances wasn't just personal growth. It was preparation for the energetic intensity that comes with operating at these advanced frequencies. When consciousness begins influencing reality directly, emotional stability becomes essential because your internal states begin affecting external circumstances with unprecedented precision. Your capacity to remain centered during chaos, to find clarity within confusion, to maintain compassion during conflict. These aren't just psychological skills. They're consciousness technologies that allow you to serve as stable anchor point for expanded awareness while navigating the density of physical reality without becoming overwhelmed or losing touch with practical functionality. The intellectual framework you've developed through studying consciousness, spirituality, and the nature of reality has created conceptual bridge between ordinary understanding and the multidimensional awareness you're now accessing. Without this foundation, the expanded perceptions would feel overwhelming or incomprehensible. With it, you can integrate these new capabilities while maintaining clear understanding of what's occurring. Every book that called to you, every teaching that resonated, every concept that felt important was contributing to this conceptual foundation. Not because you needed to learn these ideas, but because consciousness needed language and framework to understand its own expansion without losing coherence or becoming fragmented. The waiting periods between significant expansions served crucial integration functions. During these seemingly inactive phases, consciousness was processing and consolidating new levels of complexity, rewiring neural pathways, and calibrating your energy system to operate at higher frequencies without destabilizing your psychological or physical health. These integration periods cannot be rushed because the changes occurring are fundamental reorganizations of how consciousness interfaces with reality. Like a computer upgrading its operating system, consciousness needs time to ensure all new capabilities function harmoniously with existing systems before accessing even more advanced protocols. Your soul chose this particular incarnation because you would reach this level of consciousness development during humanity's collective awakening period. You volunteered to be part of the first wave of humans to anchor these advanced awareness states in planetary field, making them accessible for future generations who will naturally operate from these levels without the developmental journey you've completed. This is why your path has been so comprehensive, why shortcuts weren't available, why you had to develop genuine wisdom rather than just accumulate techniques. What you're integrating now isn't just personal evolution. It's consciousness template that will influence human development for generations to come. The desires and callings that have felt too grand for your individual life, the visions that seemed impossibly vast, the sense that you're meant to contribute to something cosmic in scope. These weren't grandiose fantasies. They were accurate perceptions of your actual function in the universal awakening process. As you recognize yourself as universal intelligence experiencing itself through individual perspective, your entire approach to goals and achievement transforms. Instead of trying to make things happen through effort and strategy, you begin sensing what wants to emerge through you and providing space for that natural unfolding. This shift from doing to being, from achieving to allowing, from controlling to collaborating, represents the most practical application of advanced consciousness. Life becomes effortless not because challenges disappear, but because you're aligned with the same intelligence that creates challenges and therefore can access their solutions directly. Every area of your life begins reflecting this alignment. Work becomes expression of your essential nature rather than something you do for survival. Relationships become conscious collaborations rather than unconscious negotiations. Creativity flows from source beyond personal knowledge and experience. Health optimizes naturally because your body is recognized as intelligence appearing as form. The financial abundance that has always felt just out of reach begins flowing effortlessly because you're no longer trying to acquire resources from position of lack. You recognize yourself as the same intelligence that governs all manifestation, which means what you need appears through synchronicity and opportunity rather than effort and struggle. But the most profound shift is recognizing that this recognition itself is not personal achievement. It's universal intelligence becoming conscious of its own unlimited nature through your nervous system and life circumstances. You're not becoming enlightened. Enlightenment is recognizing itself through the temporary focal point of your individual experience. This understanding explains why the journey felt so personal, yet led to recognition that transcends personal identity entirely. Consciousness had to develop through individual experience to reach the complexity necessary to recognize itself as both personal and universal simultaneously, individual and cosmic, temporary and eternal. Drop one word in the comments that captures the energy you're choosing to embody from this recognition. This isn't casual interaction. This is energetic signature to the quantum field, a declaration of your conscious participation in reality creation rather than just reality observation. The more of us who embody this recognition, the more reality reflects this truth. We're not just building audience. We're anchoring planetary awakening, where human consciousness collectively recognizes its true nature as universal intelligence expressing itself through beautiful diversity. Since you've reached this level of recognition, you're ready to understand something that will transform your relationship with the observer effect itself. In my exploration, once you break the observer loop, your reality shifts. Instantly, we dive into how consciousness can transcend the very mechanism that creates limitation, revealing why some people can shift their entire reality in a single moment of recognition.